The belief in the return of Jesus is one of the shared elements between Christianity and Islam, yet the interpretations of this event diverge significantly. For Christians, the second coming of Jesus affirms his divinity and his role as the Son of God. For Muslims, Jesus returns not as divine but as a servant of God, re-establishing monotheism and guiding humanity back to the original teachings of God. This stark difference raises important questions about how these interpretations align with the broader understanding of God's nature and message. From a theological perspective, Christianity teaches that Jesus' return will fulfill the promises made in the New Testament, establishing him as the final judge and redeemer. However, this concept relies heavily on the premise of Jesus' divinity, a premise that Islam challenges by emphasizing the oneness of God and rejecting the idea that divinity can be shared. If God is eternal, self-sufficient, and without need of partners, how does the concept of Jesus as both fully human and fully divine fit within this framework? Christianity's view of Jesus' role as the Son of God and Savior is rooted in the New Testament. However, Islam contends that the original message of Jesus was altered over time, introducing doctrines that were not part of his teachings. The doctrine of the Trinity, for instance, was formalized centuries after Jesus, suggesting it was not a direct part of his message. Could it be that the concept of Jesus' divinity and the second coming as a divine judge reflect human interpretations rather than divine revelation? Both Christianity and Islam revere Jesus as a significant figure, but their understanding of his mission and return contrasts sharply. If salvation is contingent on believing in Jesus' divinity, does this imply that billions of people who adhere to monotheistic beliefs, including Muslims, are excluded from salvation? Conversely, Islam's interpretation of Jesus' return as a follower of God's oneness removes the need for divine intermediaries, focusing instead on individual accountability and direct worship of God. The Christian belief in Jesus' second coming also poses questions about the purpose of his return. If Jesus' sacrifice on the cross was intended to absolve humanity of sin once and for all, why would a second coming be necessary? On the other hand, the Islamic perspective of Jesus' return emphasizes his role in reaffirming God's oneness and correcting any deviations that may have arisen since his first mission. A comparison between these views highlights the core theological divide, the nature of God and the role of Jesus within God's plan. Christianity's emphasis on Jesus' divinity and role as Savior reflects a perspective that elevates him to a status comparable with God, which Islam sees as incompatible with true monotheism. If Jesus is returning as a servant of God, as Islam teaches, it aligns with the idea of prophets consistently pointing humanity toward the worship of a singular, indivisible God. Ultimately, the differing interpretations of Jesus' second coming reflect broader theological differences between Christianity and Islam. These differences are significant and worthy of reflection. Could the divergence in beliefs about Jesus' return and his nature point to human interpretation rather than the original divine message?